What's up and welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacTheMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. Yeah, you found one on YouTube. I'm here. It's me. And today I'm going to take a look at TimeCut. This is a new Netflix movie. They dropped it on Halloween. Listen, people, if you want reviews ahead of Halloween, you got to send out screeners. I don't know what to tell you. I'll put out pretty much damn near anything. I've said this in a couple other videos. Listen, the top YouTubers, they don't review movies that aren't going to trend. That's why they're top. It's really not math. Like it's not hard science. It has nothing to do with quality of channel. It has everything to do with them picking and choosing reviews and being like, are people going to watch this review? Are people interested in this movie? So if you want TimeCut, you got it. There are like 1,000 movie review channels. Aim for the low ones and get a flood of reviews for something like TimeCut. Because I thought we've been here before, so you need to stand out. That's what I feel like. It does have audio description on Netflix, like most films do. I believe it was Descriptive Video Works did this. Although I didn't immediately recognize the the writer and narrator names, but I feel like I totally heard his voice before, and I was like, I know that voice. But then I heard the name, and I was like, I don't know that I know that voice. It's a time travel horror movie. It's yeah, we've done this. We've been here. We've done this. We're gonna keep doing it. This is the new thing. This is the new hotness. Amazon had one last year with Kiernan Shipka, whose name I've forgotten because that film was already forgettable. I really liked It's a Wonderful Knife. I wish I had seen that with audio description, but that's another sort of more of that's a slightly different take. There's also The Final Girls, which you could say is kind of like a time travel-y thing, a little bit of a different take. So it's not like this subject hasn't been broached before. Like, what if what if you could, what if you knew and you went back and well, okay. So time travel, there's an actual time travel device. It's not some weird spell or potion or anything that she drinks to go back, but Madison Bailey stars here. And this is a movie that is, I I think she might have directed something else. It might just be like a student film or something like that, but there seems to be one other film. So I hesitate to say feature directorial debut of somebody who's been working on School Spirits. But there you go. Um, she she's a teenager in high school. She's getting ready to graduate. How do I know? Because her she's at least in high school, like solidly in high school. I Her teacher's talking about this NASA internship and her applying for it, and she's like, "Oh, my parents will never let me go. They never let me go anywhere." At the beginning of the movie, we do open up into, like with most horror movies, like a kill sequence. But it's actually really interesting, and I was so interested at the beginning of the movie. I knew nothing about this movie. I was very interested because it felt very atypical to be dropped into the middle of a horror movie. Like, people are already dead, there's already a killer. So you feel like you're missing information. And to me, that I didn't know this film was going to have time travel in it. I really enjoyed that, and I thought maybe the time cut thing was going to be like, what happens if you feel like you've missed integral information as to who the killer might be going forward, and you have like a handful of survivors already. There's already a killer, already some dead bodies, the police are already looking, everything's confirmed. You know what I'm saying? You're halfway through Scream, like you missed the first 30 minutes of Scream, and you're just like, oh god. uh uh all right, it kind of feels like that. They're at a party, much like they do in Scream, and they're toasting their dead friends and trying to live their best life, much kind of like dumb teens do in horror movies. There's one of them goes out and ends up being attacked by the killer, and we see that obviously it's not over. And it basically does the Scream thing too, where the killer has this scythe, slashes it at the camera, and then we cut. So sort of like how that Scream happens, where in the original, this movie is paying so much homage uh, that it's impossible to not ignore it. Um, so yeah, even with her running away and there are people in the distance, she's calling off to them and she's like, help, help. And the killer's running after her. I was like, this Heather chick who directed this movie, she really fucking loves Scream. Like, her influences when she went into film school, she just wrote Wes Craven. And they're like, have you, I don't know, I only watch Wes Craven movies. This is, how many, I've seen Scream 274 times. Okay. So I want to make Scream, but my version of it. That's what I want to do with time travel. I feel like Wes Craven would be totally here for it. So, it's Scream with time travel. It's basically what it is. There you go. So, it's revealed that the girl who essentially gets Casey'd, is the older sister in a mathematically improbable way where none of it's really explained. I was like, what? Huh? Okay, so I know people procreate early in life, and I'm not trying to shame you, but so the math in this film, beginning of the film takes place in 2003, is when the first killings take place. And then we jump ahead, and obviously this film was like shot last year. They wrote it last year, whatever. So it's like 2023, right? So 20 years. And in this film, she goes with her parents celebrating the 20th anniversary, and there's like a marker and like the town and everything. And somebody asked her to do something, and she's like, I can't today, because of the thing. And people are like, oh yeah. And then she talks about her sister, but here's the thing. She's like, I never knew my sister. So it's been 20 years. Now, her sister was a teenager, like in high school. So given age range, probably somewhere between 16 and 18. They're usually in the upper ages of high school whenever we do these films. So somebody had a baby and raised that kid to 16. Now, this girl has not graduated high school yet. So she also has to be 16 or 18, and it's been 20 years. So they had to wait like 4 years, whatever, to propagate again, and then make this kid so we could get to the 20 years after the death. So I don't know when in the math all of these people were born, but it gave me pause. I was like, okay. Not adopted. All right. I like, cool. Actual sister, parents actually. What's funny too is it breaks that trope of parents getting divorced after a tragedy, right? Where they're like, oh, we can't stay together. We lost a daughter, and we usually break up because we can't, the horror of it all. But this girl definitely was not born because the math would not allow it. So she definitely was not even alive during her sister's time on Earth. But she feels so strongly about this and has such a strong connection that on the 20th anniversary of her sister's death, she wanders into the barn, basically where her sister died 20 years ago, and time travels 20 years back, and finds herself in and around, and it's a few days before, like, the couple people who had already died when we met are not dead yet, so she has time to make some change. And there's sort of like that debate. She talks to one of her teachers about time travel, and the same teacher who I think recommended her before And he seemed really young, by the way, to be a teacher who had taught both her and her daughter and her sister. I was like, that's 20 years, man. Like, anyway, um, but she ends up meeting this other kid who's intrigued, mainly because he's building a time travel machine. So, huh? What? I like it better when there's not an actual machine. Like, I know you're asking me to jump off the ledge with you, but I like when there isn't like an actual time travel device. I'm actually way more of the mystic sort of like 17 again, make a wish, and like some old angel winks at you, and suddenly you wake up the next day and you're back in time or something like that is a much better way of doing things. This actual teenager being able to create a time travel device thing is just blowing my mind. So, but it's there, and it's a plot device that the film is going to use. And they talk about, well, time travel. You shouldn't time travel back because you never know how it might affect the future. And the ripples could be the ripple effect, butterfly effect, which I always think is silly. Like, one butterfly is not going to change the world. I know people have tried to explain that, but it's such a weird way. Yes, deciding whether or not somebody lives or dies could. For example, her saving her sister could stop her from existing because she wasn't born until after her sister had died. So she may have been, I don't like to use the term replacement child, but I'm going to use that term here. Her parents are really underdeveloped. We don't get a whole lot of backstory. They're there, but they're not there. This is not a deep film. This is a film that has a teenager creating a time travel device in a barn. So, from there, the killer comes and we see people dying, and the first time something different happens, she realizes it didn't happen in her favor. Instead, somebody extra who wasn't supposed to die dies. So she affected the wrong kind of change. And that's kind of the way the film goes forth from there. I don't want to like spoil the whole thing, but there are a handful of teenagers, and it's like, which one of these people could do it? And I know that the film is trying to be really clever, and I have to give it props because I saw the ending coming. I saw the ending coming. And my gosh, she tries really hard. And I'm like, I know you love Scream, and I know you really want to be the next Wes Craven, but my God, this is the most obvious ending in the entire world. Like, there's some parts of this, and I can't even talk about them because it would literally give away the ending. But when you really think about what this film is telling you, what you really think about what she's decided to present to you, it's really obvious who the killer is. It's really obvious who the killer is. So, but the funny thing is, she goes out of her way to make sure that that person can't possibly look like the killer. So it's one of those things where, I kind of felt that, and I kind of dragged, what was it, Scream 5? 5, with with what's it face from The Boys, Quaid, in it, because of how few locations he would have actually been able to be in. Like how, like the whole thing about his guy, I just didn't buy it. I wasn't sold on him because of everything that they showed you and like where he was and stuff like that. So I didn't get it. I was like, man, the other girl was doing a lot of work. The other girl was doing all the heavy lift. What was he doing? I don't know. But yeah, it felt like in that film, heavy lifting was done, but it did feel like they were going out of the way to try to make it look like, and to the point where it wasn't even believable. Now here, yeah, she comes back around with the way that I fucking knew was going to happen, and be like, haha, this is how. And so there's an interesting conundrum where you're like, well, what if? And I don't know, what if? Why don't you go down that road? Why don't you make the Why don't you pull that trigger, you know? So yeah, it could have done something really interesting at the end. Instead, it kind of decides to go the happy ending route and tie everything up nicely and be like, oh my god, wasn't that amazing? Time travel is like the best. I love it. Solves all problems ever. And it just works. Like, it was just that easy that a team could just create time travel in a barn. That's it. That's how easy it is. We just haven't done it yet. We haven't managed it, but one day there will be a teen in a barn who will master time travel. Audio description here was pretty good. This one's not extremely gory. It's a slasher movie, so most of the time people just get slashed, you know, stabbed or whatever. Yeah, it's I don't know. It was okay. I'm not gonna totally hit on the movie, but it does feel like we have been here before. People have already figured out that putting time travel into horror movies would be fun, and they've already tried that. So what is it that you're bringing new to the table? And when you pay so much homage to Scream, it is like glaringly obvious. And then you're also taking this plot device. What is it about it that works? You know? And some of those other movies I listed, I adore. I love Final Girls. I would handily recommend that film over and over. I think that film is hilarious. I think that film takes its unique way of traveling. It's not really even time travel. It sort of is, but it is also not at the same time. I think some of that is just absolutely hilarious. And that's one of my favorite horror comedies. And I enjoyed It's a Wonderful Life. So, I mean, like, we've done this type of thing. So how do you put your stamp on it differently? And it can't just be having an obvious time machine, because that's what the Amazon movie just did last year. It was an actual time machine, you know, an actual like thing that actually transported them back through time, not like a wish and a prayer. So, I don't know. Take it or leave it. The cast is okay. Acting's fine. If you really like slasher movies, you'll probably like this. It's just not going to end up on some sort of list where you're like, wow, this is the most revolutionary thing I've ever watched in my entire life. So I'm going to give TimeCut C+. I would lean positive on it because I enjoyed it more than I didn't. It wasn't like a waste of my time. And actually, most of the plus is because of the heavy homage in the beginning. I loved the homage. It was so heavy in the beginning. I was like, this girl loved Scream. This director clearly loved Scream. And I totally got every single thing, every little tidbit of homage. Even some of it seemed like it was an amalgamation of other things that had happened in Scream too. Like you were putting them all together to try to, like, it wasn't, she's not making popcorn. You know what I'm saying? Like it reminded me a lot of like Going into the Garage type stuff. So yeah, check it out. Let me know. Put your thoughts in the comments. Click like and subscribe. And I will see you guys on the other side.